Hello YouTube, I'm Jack Clark, the YGOMusketeer, coming to you with a structure deck review of the up-and-coming Dragon's Collide structure deck that will be coming to the TCG on the 7th of February. Now, yes, I did just say it's a Dragon structure deck. I know everyone's already aware, and everyone's already thought this, but Konami, why you no make other types? Cries, because those other 20 types, they don't exist, sure. But regardless of my personal irks with dragons, because they're fucking everywhere, the deck itself is looking somewhat interesting, because everyone knows the current trend with structure decks is that as soon as they're released, you can buy 3 of them and you can combine the contents to make a really good deck that is which is very powerful in its own right, and some have even made it onto quite high-ranking tournaments. So it'll be interesting to see how this does as a dragon deck, simply because we've had dragon decks that have not really been that good. I mean, Hopeless and Disaster Dragons, or whatever they're called, just like their name suggested, were hopeless and disasters. I think it was mainly due to inconsistency issues that stopped them from being really competitive, but they just didn't really work, and they did work, and I know I'm sure I'll get many people in the comments going, "Oh, you don't know shit about Disaster Dragon, blah blah blah." And no, I don't know, but I think we can all agree that they're not really on the level of Plant Synchro or any of the previous structure decks. With that in mind, because it's in a structure deck, and normally structure decks, they give you everything that you need, it'll be interesting to see what kind of tournament impact this will make, simply because Lightpulsar Dragon and Darkflare Dragon and Eclipse Wyvern, the 3 cards I'm going to be talking about in this video, are rather promising. Now, the overall theme of these cards is chaos. Absolute chaos. Literally. Blackluster Soldier, Chaos Emperor Dragon, Chaos Sorcerer. These work so well. They're basically dragon-type versions. Lightpulsar Dragon has the same condition. You can summon it from your hand by removing from play a light and a dark monster from your graveyard from play. Alternatively, you can summon it from your graveyard by sending a light and a dark monster in your hand to the graveyard. However, for those of you who were on Dueling Eric at the time of Lightpulsar Dragon's inception, you will know that its last effect did not miss the timing at the time. Its effect, if you are unaware, is that when it's sent from the field to the graveyard, you special summon a level 5 or a higher dark dragon from your graveyard. Now that on its own, you would be able to summon Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon, and alongside Cannon Soldier or Mass Driver, you are able to FTK them right there. And I lost quite a few doors simply because they would literally open the door, they would win the dice roll, and they would show me their hand, and then type GG because I had all the combo pieces and all the ways to utilize those combo pieces, and I'll just stare blankly at the screen and just kind of, yeah, that sucks. However, now it does miss the timing with certain changes that Konami has made, which is very good, just simply because I don't want an FTK format. I mean, I've had enough of Substitute as it is. I don't think we need dragons doing those kinds of shenanigans either. But yes, Lightpulsar Dragon, although it can't do the FTK stuff that it used to be able to do, it still is able, like I said, to get Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon, and it's quite nice to be able to, with Lightpulsar Dragon, it gets destroyed, you get Red Eyes, you get another monster with Red Eyes. You are able to, even with the loss of Lightpulsar Dragon, to maintain some field advantage on the field. And with 2500 attack points, it's actually quite pleasing. And it can recur itself, because it can special summon from the graveyard by sending a light and dark monster from your hand to the graveyard, which is nice, and I really like it. And it'll be interesting to see whether or not that's the kick up the backside that dragons need all on its own. But of course, the next card is Darkflare Dragon, which is the 5-star Dark Dragon, which you're supposed to use with Lightpulsar Dragon. Now, I don't think this is going to be used as widely as Lightpulsar Dragon, however, I do think it's particularly worth noting, simply because its secondary effect. Now, of course, it doesn't have the effect to summon it from the graveyard by sending a light and a dark from your hand to the graveyard, no. It does have the effect to summon it from your hand by banishing a light and dark from your graveyard, which is always very, very good. Always nice to have a special summoning condition attached to big monsters. But its effect to send a dragon from your hand and from your deck to the graveyard to banish a monster, or I think it's a card or whatever, in your opponent's graveyard from playing, is very noteworthy, simply because this card on your own means that you don't necessarily have to rely on limited cards like Future Fusion and such to set up your graveyard, which I think was always a problem that Dragon decks had, is simply because you were relying on setting up your graveyard with one limited card, which generally, as a rule of thumb, doesn't sound like the best plan to have. This dragon, Darkflare Dragon, means that you don't necessarily have to do that, and although its effect is not quite as dump 5 dragons in your graveyard immediately, it does allow you to have a more balanced kind of sending cards gradually to the graveyard whilst disrupting your opponent's graveyard and it being attached to a 2400 attack point body. The last card I would like to talk about in this deck is the Eclipse Wyvern, which is the super rare of the deck, And for those of you who are unaware, when it's sent from the field to the graveyard, you can banish one level 7 or higher light or dark dragon monster from your deck, and when it is in your graveyard and it is banished, you can add the card you banished initially with its effect, the level 7 dark or light dragon, and you can add that to your hand. On its own, I really like this card, simply because it's a light monster, which means, of course, it's chaos food, which is what it's intended for with its effect, and its effect doesn't miss the timing. So you can banish it with the Chaos Monsters, and you will be able to get its effect. Of course, you're not able to actually search or banish the Lightpulsar Dragon or Darkflare Dragon. However, what this can mean is that you can search for your Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon straight from the deck, and you can also get, I don't know, it's depending if you're running that kind of deck, you can add Blue Eyes White Dragon to your hand if that rocks your boat. But on its own, I really like it simply because it can search for Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon, which means you can get more field advantage and more hand advantage, in fact. So, yeah. And whether or not this deck will make any kind of an impact on the meta itself, I think Lightpulsar Dragon shows promise. Darkflare Dragon, they all show good promise, and it'll be interesting to see whether or not people can create a suitable deck that can top tournaments with it. I have high hopes for this deck, and although it doesn't include Blackluster Soldier Envoy of the beginning in the deck, which sucks, which means immediately it won't be a budget deck immediately, but it will have such reprints like Chaos Sorcerer, Lila, Lightsworn Sorceress, and Raiko, Charger Light Brigade. So you automatically, even if you don't want to make the Dragon deck, you could have the makings of a Lightsworn deck, simply because Judgment Dragon has been released as a common in the Rare Yellow pack and the Legendary Collection number 2, so that is also an idea. But yeah, that's generally my thoughts and ideas on the Dragons Collide structure deck. If you have any thoughts and ideas on the deck itself, or if you want to argue with me, or whatever really, just post them in the comments or as a video response down below, and I really appreciate it. I read all of the comments that you do, and I will try and reply to pretty much everyone that I can do, within my power and knowledge. So yes, I'm Jack Clark, the YGOMusketeer. More videos out to you soon, but until then, annotation at the top left of the screen will take you to a previous video, and annotation at the top right will take you to a future video. If there's not one there, there'll be one there soon. I'm Jack Clark, the YGOMusketeer. Goodbye.